Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you live on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app and stream all of our live local shows, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. And we can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today, as I have an opportunity to continue a panoramic discussion about our cultural history at a time of real vibrancy and consciousness awakening. We are at a time now, again, where I think it's really about power to the people if they want their republic to remain intact. And it is an honor to bring onto the program yet another Kesey from the Kesey family and from the lineage of this family. Neal Cassady, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hey, thanks, Jake. Good to be talking to you.
You too, my man. You too. It's great to talk to you, man. You know, Dale, can you just talk about growing up, the kind of instruments that you grew up, like the first time you picked up an instrument, and the kind of musical, just sort of interest that you had early on?
Sure. I started playing the violin when I was 10 years old. And my dad played guitar, and I had two aunts that also played and sang, and every time we got in the car, we'd start singing. And my brother and my sister, myself and my dad, or anytime, actually, I mean, lots of times we'd get together as family. So my dad was probably one of the first country and western bands here in Oregon. Started a little place called the Lane County Barn Dance, and had a lot of musicians go through there.
And so were you experimenting on the violin in a non-classical setting?
No, I started in school taking lessons, and I studied for probably 10 years with a violinist that played for the NBC studio orchestra in Southern California for, I guess, about 10 years, and also studied in college.
So at what point did you get hip to the idea of, I mean, you said your father had one of the first country western bands, is that right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, did you ever go into a setting out and play your violin outside of the classical setting?
Oh, yeah. I started playing with my dad in bars when I was about, 16. And, just maybe a night or so here and there. And like I said, we did play a lot together, and very musical family. Like I said, with my aunts and so forth. So, yeah, I was always playing the fiddle, too. And lots of times it didn't mix too well with my classical training, but that is, my professors and teachers didn't like it too much when I played hoedowns for finals. You know, they were going for that. And I had a Indian motorcycle, and I carried the fiddle on the back of that motorcycle, and I remember my music history teacher saying, "You know what, Dale? That looks really strange."
Did you run into cats? Did you have a chance to see guys like Bill Monroe or Vassar Clemens? I mean, guys that were really stretching the boundaries on bluegrass and Appalachian music?
Oh, you bet. Yeah.
You talk about their presence on the bandstand. I mean, I listen to records of Vassar.
Oh my gosh.
And my guy, I mean, just he burns, but I mean, when he talks, he might say 3 or 4 words, but they're the most. They have the most significance. You know, it's tremendous. Just tell me about how they impressed you.
Just a very real kind of down home. You know, I mean, they're not pretentious in any way or form or anything. I mean, they're just. And I think of Byron Berline, who played with. Mason Williams here, Mason, what a tremendous guy that guy is. Funny, I mean, I'm telling you, you fall off the chair laughing. But Vassar, I didn't get to talk to him very much or anything, but I asked him about his sound setup, and amplified, and it was pretty simple, it wasn't anything really elaborate, but it just that he had the licks. I had 5 kids, so, I didn't give myself to music for 20 years. I just dropped it pretty much, and so I lost a lot, I was really that dedicated, but I was more dedicated to my family, so I kind of moved away from that.
I guess what I'm getting at is that I've talked to Babs, I've talked to George Walker, haven't gotten to Mike Hagan,
Right.
haven't gotten to Hagan yet. But those cats,
All right.
But I mean, can you talk about the spontaneous improvisation? You guys were not professional musicians by any means, but I really want you to take this audience worldwide to a time when the pranksters just let it all hang out and stopped off in a small place somewhere, had a profound impact. Because listen, the more that I do this, I mean, when you look at the originalist bands that came out of the 60s, it was the pranksters that set the stage for being yourself. And I just wanted you to go back in time and talk about a time that really had an impression on you in a musical context.
Okay, very quickly, I'll just try to paint a picture here. In back of Ken's house in La Honda, there was kind of a natural amphitheater. There was a guy that was staying with us, Ron Boise, who was a metal sculpturist. And he built sculptures out of car fenders and car trunks and other great big sheets of metal. They were kind of huge things. That was really, really good stuff. And he put the patina on them and so forth. But he was an amazing artist, and he built for us a thunder machine. And so in this kind of amphitheater that was in back of Ken's house with the redwoods, this is up in La Honda in the hills of California there, you might know about it. But anyway, the Coast Range, the redwoods would stretch out there in the background. And anyway, we had this thunder machine, great big old car fender, and we put piano strings on it. And so when you hit this thing, it would just give this vibration that was just tremendous, And so I worked on it and trying to get it so that I could tune it in some way, And then we would cut loose and just make. At first, it was noise, and it would just all this vibration and that was going outdoors and so forth, all this noise and racket, and it had no sense, no meaning. But then it would kind of culminate and would come down, and pretty soon there was something there. It was
because I know that. I mean, I'm not sure if you in '84 in the early '80s, Ken was bringing that Thunder Machine to the Dead shows.
Right.
And like they had these. I talked to Babs about it, and he was like, they actually had like electric sockets where you could plug, or you could plug he plugged his trombone into it.
Right.
Can you talk about the sounds and how that imagery, how that auditory impacted? You guys were going on colors, sounds,
right.
music. It's so, I didn't even know about this amphitheater either, which is just phenomenal. But can you talk about the dynamics of those sounds and how it played into consciousness expansion for you guys as well?
Well, they had to size it down a lot to get it on stage and stuff, and but still, they were able to use it in a lot of different ways, and I wasn't party to a lot of that, but I know that that in a lot of ways we explored with a lot of different things. You mentioned color and sound and so forth. Seaburn and I, Roy Seaburn, we did the light shows, and we had something like we had a projector and then a petri dish, and we would put different colors in there, and it would project things up onto a big screen on the stage, and we would mix colors in there, and then shine different lights and colored lights on there. Pretty much, I don't know if anybody else was doing it. A few others were doing this at the time, but very few. And then every once in a while, we'd throw in a bug, a big old grasshopper.
Wow. What is it? What year is it? About 60, 65? What do you think year is this?
Yeah, probably 66, 67, somewhere.
Or you throw a bug in there?
65. Yeah. Yeah, it was amazing. It was good stuff. Roy was an amazing artist, too. And so, all that played into it. And so we were just having fun. We were just experimenting with different things. Like I said, plugging the trombone into the thunder machine and wild and crazy noise. But, to me, it was like it had to go somewhere. I wanted to kind of, more get it more form and more, it got a little bit too crazy. I couldn't kind of, you know what I mean? As a musician, I was like, no, it wasn't quite getting it.
What was it? It was lacking like actual musical continuity. It was just, is that what you mean? There wasn't enough?
Yeah, music has got to have some structure, meaning or distinctness, It's got to, because skill and all those things have to come into it. And that's what was, the Grateful Dead, that was one of the things that they capitalized on, was that they would just start going off, but they started out with a structure, but then they would just drift off,
Exactly.
And play the improvise.
Well, they really were. The more and more I listen to their music, and I've listened to quite a bit of it, it's just they were the best band at truly just, letting something go off and improvising and being pretty fearless about, falling on their face and not really worrying about that. I wanted, Ken said something here, and Babs was quoting him, and I wanted to get your take. Ken, he said, Ken Kesey really said it well. Our saving grace was to always fail. Do you remember him saying that?
Okay, he said, yeah.
And go ahead. Can you talk about that? What that means to you, and actually, if you can personalize it as well, the idea of overcoming adversity or failing, and ultimately that being the saving grace.
Well, yeah, I think we learn more from failures than we do from successes. In that sense, you know what I mean? It's when we're failing and when we're weak. And I, can say that I would revert that to the Bible and saying, in our weaknesses is when we're strong. That's what Paul said. That's when we're strongest. Because that's when we need that outside strength to come in and to help us out. So unless we touch on that higher power, the God thing. We need God, right? So that's when we're failing. That's when we need Him. That's when we can. That's how we grow. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Without that, we don't.
I did. Can you? So, to the best of your recollection, you are one of the original Merry Pranksters, and I wanted to go ahead.
Oh well, me and Ken. We grew up together, so our pranks go way back. I was just thinking about someone, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, please. This is what I want to get at. This is the indigenous. This is the original crew, and
yeah.
Where did you? So when you say you grew up together, how far away did you live from him? How much? How the Kesey family? Can we go back and just paint the picture of how close everybody was in the vicinity together?
Yeah, they were. dad and his two brothers, Fred, Ken's dad, and then the youngest brother, Cad, all lived right around each other and worked together, and of course, they would all get together. I mean, we'd get together at least once a week and have dinner, and I can remember them just laughing and just having the greatest time in the world in the house. And then there were 5 of us cousins, and outside we were just having a blast. And one time, Chuck hypnotized Ken. See, I mean, it was all set up. He hypnotized him, and Ken became a gorilla. Okay, and so some of us were younger, me and my other cousin. We were convinced that he had actually turned him into a gorilla, and Ken had, being the oldest, biggest, he would act like the gorilla. He's going.
I love it.
And so he chased us all around the house, and so I ran in the house and under the bed, but along the way there somewhere I picked up I think it was a kitchen knife or something, and when he stuck his head under the bed to grab me, I punked him on the head with the handle end of the knife. I brought him right out of that hypnotic state.
He was actually in a hypnotic state, though.
No.
But yeah, because I was afraid you were going to try to chop his head. I thought you were going to try to kill him.
Chop his head off. No. But anyway, so he was always doing stuff. I mean, we were always like, he was just, I don't know. He was the leader, and we had a lot of fun. We just had a lot of fun.
Can you talk about the how because I know for a while he lived in these like little row houses in Menlo Park. Was that before?
Right.
Was that before La Honda or I think that was before La Honda? Is that right?
I think so. Yes, definitely. Yeah, that was Perry Lane, and that's when he had the fellowship for Stanford, and Stegner, and I was going to San Jose State at the time, so I was hanging out there quite a bit with Jamie Burton and Jim Walton and Vic Lovell, I guess it is. And, of course, I was just a kid, These were all older graduate students. But, so I was taking all that in, and it was an amazing time there. Mm-hmm.
I want to get your take on this. This is from George Walker. I guess you probably know George pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
My first real psychedelic experience was with peyote in 1961. Miracle of miracles, I was in the Bay Area, and it snowed on Perry Lane that night. Perry Lane is in Menlo Park, Palo Alto, near Stanford University. Not only did Kesey live there for decades but decades of far out people that lived in these hovels. They were called hovels, built in World War I. It was cheap, communal, because there was a bunch of them. For decades, a lot of the real avant-garde people of all stripes had lived at Perry Lane. Kesey was among the last because when he left, it was about the time they tore it all down and built suburban housing.
Right.
So, can you talk about your first psychedelic experience?
I don't remember too much because I think it might have been earlier. I'm not real sure, but I think Ken brought some things up when I went to the University of Oregon here for a while before going to San Jose State down there. And so I think possibly earlier he brought up some experimental things that were psychedelic. And that was when I was still in Oregon before we went down there. So, yeah, and it was just it puts you in another state of consciousness. I mean, basically, I don't know how it's pretty hard to explain. It's just another dimension almost, you might say, another part of your brain that's just activated. And And it's you're just looking at little bugs, and you're just you can spend hours and just
No, I
yeah.
know. Let me tell you something. It's so great
Uh,
to talk to Neal Cassady right now because the stuff that Walker said he was bringing up was called MK Ultra. It was like
okay.
I'm just,
Hmm.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is this was stuff that Kesey was taking while he was working in the mental hospital at where was he getting this stuff from? Do you know?
Probably from Vic, because Vic was in the
Who's Vic?
in
Who's
the
Vic, by the way? Who's Vic?
Vic level, but he was a graduate student, getting his doctorate in psychotherapy, or psychiatric or whatever. But and I remember some stuff called IT-290, and I think he got a lot of it from Vic. I mean, because Vic would work with the mental hospitals and different pharmaceutical places. They were probably right on that line of psychotropics. Developing psychotropics, which Zoloft and all these.
Sure,
These,
absolutely.
all they came, and so they were so we I guess maybe we were the guinea pigs, but we were having a blast being guinea pigs. I mean, it was kind of fun.
Well,
really,
it was the purest. I mean, I guess what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say is like you guys were really the. I mean, there have been people that have been doing hallucinogenic psychedelics for centuries, obviously, but it's like
Yeah,
the idea of the Sandoz acid. This cat that you're talking about,
right.
this guy was at Berkeley. This cat, I think that they were getting the stuff from. This.
Owsley, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, this is before Owsley did Sandoz Laboratories. Yeah,
Yeah, no. Walker
yeah.
said that he had a roommate in Berkeley, and he was
Mm-hmm.
he was a small time dealer, but he called him up. He said,
Mm-hmm.
"I got some LSD. You mentioned you'd like to try some. I got some. I went up to the hill and got some. I brought it to LaHans. I was hanging out
Right.
at Kesey's. A bunch of the friends were there, Babs and Hagen. We all took it. Turned out that
Right.
was the day of the Great Alaskan Earthquake. It was also the day the Merry Pranksters were born. So it was quite a
Right,
moment.
'cause then-
Were you there for that day?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. See, they didn't let me, because I was too young. They figured, and so I think it wasn't until we were actually on the bus that I got my first acid. But like I said before that, we were sampling other little things.
Do you think you had your first experience with God on acid? Can you talk about that?
No, it was never a spiritual thing with me. And by the way, we because of Jane Burke, she was like a philosophy professor, later judge and so forth. She was very protective, right?
Who are we talking about? Who are we talking about?
Jane Burton.
Jane Burton.
Yeah,
Now, now, I don't know that name.
She was one of the original pranksters. I mean, she was on the bus trip.
Got
She
it.
was pregnant on her way back to New York. And anyway, she was the mother. She was kind of our mother hen. But there were designated dosages. There's the scene and the setting and so forth that had to be controlled. You know what I mean? I mean, it wasn't just like, they were very meticulous, like in the dosage and so forth. At first, they were anyway. And so they paid attention to that stuff. I mean, because it's pretty dangerous stuff, really. I mean, as we found out later. But so it was an experience, but it was never, for me. It was never a spiritual experience, because I was kind of a church kid, and for me, a lot of it was I was searching for truth. I really was.
Mm-hmm.
I was having fun doing it, but in the back of my mind, I was always like, more interested in philosophy and just finding out what was really going on. I'd read a lot, and so that's what it was for me. I mean, not that that I wasn't into partying and having the fun, but LSD was not a party drug. It was not something that I took lightly, because it was pretty heavy duty stuff now.
You're articulating it perfectly. It opens up a new pathway in your brain, and you were searching for truth. could you talk about something that, maybe the truth changed over time, but was there something that you early on that you discovered to say, well, I think I'm going to keep taking this in reasonable doses? Something that had a really enlightening thing that was really enlightening for you on LSD.
No, instead of getting better, it got worse.
Well, let's stay in the better part. Let's stay in the better part for a minute before it got worse.
Okay.
Because Zane, I did an interview with Zane about a month ago, and he is more of was more of a microdoser and not somebody who did these deep trips like the pranksters would. I mean, you guys would really have like you said, it wasn't spiritual. He used the word spiritual, but it was like a journey, and you guys were there together. So when it was why was it good for you? Could you just point to something specific as during the good times why it was good?
Gosh, I'm really digging in here. I think what it did was everything was awake. I mean, everything was expanded. Everything was in not only three-dimensional, but it was holographic almost. It was just a heightening of so much that was there, and it didn't. I mean, any little thing. So I can remember listening to an audio version of Alice in Wonderland. So
I just found that record. Yeah. I just found that record today. That's really funny. I pictured it. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
So that was it. I mean, oh my goodness, whoa, the poor Alice, But
well, actually, yeah, that movie was pretty predicated on psychedelics too. But Alice in what? So, it was just funny because my friend sent me an article today in the Los Angeles Times talking about psilocybin. Mushrooms. I'll send you the article in the Los Angeles Times about cancer patients having alleviation of anxiety and depression when taking psilocybin. And this came out today, and it's like, I mean, I realize that over time things may have gotten weirder or worse or whatever you want to say, but can you talk about, truthfully, stepping back, can you talk about the introspection or the things that LSD provided you constitutionally that allows you to have a wide view, that you don't have a narrow view of the world, that you can see out from the trees, that you're not too inside the forest, that you can see outside? Do you believe that acid contributed to that?
Well, I guess I preferred peyote and psilocybin.
They were just because it was just it was an easier trip kind of thing.
Maybe it wasn't so sharp, but also in that sense it was a little bit more spiritual.
Can you explain why?
And it really fit in. Well, it kind of fit into maybe what I was exploring at that time was the Eastern thought, religious thought.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Like Lao Tzu, or the I want to have the Bhagavad Gita. That kind of thing. I'm having a hard time kind of remembering.
Let me ask you. This is very important. This is very important. Were you talking about like the Indian gurus, like Maharishi, the TM? I mean, what were you?
Yeah.
Who were you getting off?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. Just kind of getting off in Mid-Eastern thought and that kind of thing, of being one with all and so forth. I don't know. My memory is
You're doing great, man. No, this is great. This is great.
But I want to say that also, in my psychology classes, they at that time they had found that LSD was one of the best cures there was. That they were having the greatest success with alcoholism.
Get out of here.
And no, that was kind of like that was definitely the direction it was going. And like again, it was controlled scene and setting. So they'd put these people in a room and monitor everything, and all had all the electrodes hooked up to them and so forth. So, but they found it a great success. That's what came out. That was 1964.
Let me ask you a question. This is really, so in your classes, you were just, I mean, I can't imagine you didn't have, there weren't articles being published. I mean, were you actually doing these, were you working with alcoholics on this stuff?
More mental institutions was where I was, but I was talking to the professors. This was kind of outside of class, right?
I dig.
Yeah. So I was saying, hey, what about this article and so forth that I'm reading? And so then they would open up some other literature then for me and so forth. But and then that, from talking to Vic and so forth about this stuff. So it was for a matter, it's a whole spiritual journey. I mean, it was for me, and it continued for a long time. I mean, before finally, hey, wait a minute. You don't have to take something to be there,
Well, we can do, to me, if you could talk about ultimately being like the first road trip on, or one of the most memorable road trip the Pranksters took with you as one of the original ones. I mean, I have been, I'm going to get to everybody. Hagen doesn't like to talk too much, but I mean, I've already done 2 interviews with Babs. I've already, talked to Walker, the Kesey. Now I get a chance to talk to you. Can you talk about a memorable journey? I mean, were you on the New York trip when you videotaped the whole? Can you talk about a memorable bus experience?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there were a lot of. I'm just, I was talking about George. Though George is really articulate. You know what? I mean, he was a philosophy major.
He's brilliant, dude. Yeah.
We went to San Jose State together, and I don't know. He's just very intelligent, very very neat guy. I love George, but guys, we picked up. Okay, so Jack Kerouac was there, Allen Ginsberg, Neal Cassady's driving the bus. We're going around through Greenwich Village, real tight. I mean Neal was an amazing driver. I want to tell you, he's amazing. This guy was just, talking and just, jabbering, he's coming on, he loved it.
No, I mean, I remember talking to. Yeah, go ahead. I mean, he was having 3 conversations at once and not even looking at the road. Somehow he wouldn't get in an accident. I don't know how that happened.
No, and he could all bring it back together.
Right.
He would have all these different things out there, and it was like juggling. It was amazing just to listen to him. It was a work of art. But anyway, he more like a Pollock, though, But anyway. He would just barely miss these cars, I mean, just like inches,
oh.
And we're freaking out. I think maybe he did hit a car. I mean, just one car that I can remember. But anyway, all of a sudden Jack says, "Stop!" And of course we're playing our music, in through the loudspeakers, kind of inside. I don't think, or piping it out. It was the middle of the night. Stop, and so Neal, jams on the brakes, and open the door. So he opens the door, and Jack jumps out, and it's just a street corner with this, one street lamp hanging down. And Jack, he's got his, sloppy suit coat on, kind of, and I think he had, a little hat of some sort. And jumps out there and just starts doing this jig. I mean, it was just, I mean, just that snapshot, it just burned into my mind for some reason. You know what I mean? It was just, one of those times.
Talking to Dale Kesey here, part of the Kesey lineage. I mean, can you go? Who in the hierarchical structure of Ken's parents or your parents? Where did this what I love about you guys so much is that, well, first of all, you're very open-minded, but second of all, it's about essentially spontaneous creativity on the spot, like Jack Cassady or Neal Cassady or Jack Kerouac doing a jig. Okay, like just spontaneous creativity, not about perfection. It wasn't about perfection. It was about, more importantly, just having a good time and learning stuff. And I just wonder if you could trace that back. Were there people in the Kesey family that you could trace back to Europe or wherever you guys came from that had that kind of gumption in a different time? I guess it was Ken.
I think absolutely. Yeah. I think this. Yeah. And Jake, can I just say something spontaneous here?
Please.
Just throw it in there.
Do it, man.
I just want you, that I am praying for Israel. All these fires that are going on over there right now. I mean, it's just like, wow, are you kidding me?
Well, I think that we all need to. No, we need to. I have a very. I'm called. No, you know what, man? I appreciate it a lot, and you know what?
Okay.
I am. I'm very proud of my Jewish heritage. I'm actually a Taoist, but and I've never. I hope to go to Israel. But I really appreciate your thoughts, brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our heritage, I really believe is, just the Irish kind of thing, and Irish Scottish kind of mix in. I had the opportunity to go to Ireland and Scotland just a couple of years ago, and I see that. And they're fighting and they're dancing and drinking and all that, coming over, to the Appalachians, and the kind of the frontier kind of concept. Pursuing that, I see that in my folks. They came out here in the 40s after the Dust Bowl experience, and they trace our family back, in different ways. They kind of lose them back in West Virginia, I think, somewhere. I mean, they're just. That's the end of the track right there.
No, I dig.
But in being back in Tennessee, I saw a lot of the tombstones and graveyards and so forth where Kesey's buried, and it was very much like Oregon, very verdant, and a lot of farming going on there, and so I could see why they loved Oregon. And they were, predominantly farmers, and so I think, that was a lot of it as far as, creative things. I think that the fact that, the families, just getting together and telling stories and playing music and that kind of thing was just part of their life. It was just something that they did.
No, I mean it's so. Did you you went down to San Jose State? Were there acid tests there? Did you guys have an acid test there, or were you at the Watts acid tests?
Let's see. No, I wasn't at the Watts. No, I went to school there in the '64, so we hadn't gone to New York yet. We went to New York in '64, so I was still there in '64, and then So later on, I can't remember when the acid test started taking place, and I was there during the early part of that, and then I split off for quite a long time after that, and a lot of that later stuff, just for various reasons. One thing, I fell in love with this girl, and we ran off. Together we decided we wanted to, have our own life and do our own thing, and so I split and about I was I can't remember what year it was, but it was there when the bus was in San Francisco, and we were just starting the acid tests and things like that.
So when did you fall? When did you meet this girl, roughly?
It was in 1964. Yeah.
And
yeah.
So you guys were and so then at that point you stopped taking psychedelics altogether?
No, we kept on. I mean, I still hung on there for another year or two. It was like 66 probably before we actually took off, I think.
So can you talk about that early experience? So the New York trip, everybody seemed to have. What do you think out of all of it? What was your? Everybody had their own roles. What was your role?
Mm-hmm.
Would you think? I mean, because in many ways it was like, I don't know. I would have been the guy being like, Neal, watch out, watch that car, man. You're gonna hit that. I mean, maybe I would have just been the looking out for everybody. But I mean, it was like, what was Dale Kesey's role on those prankster bus trips?
When I was a kid, I was the youngest. They were all, several years my seniors. And me and Neal were buddies. I'm telling you, me and Neal, we just and so I was his protege, right? And so we would just rap, man. I mean, we would just talk at each other.
You were really, I want you to talk. I could just listen to you talk about Neal Cassady. Now again, I was born in 1978, so this is way after my time, but I know that individual had a profound impact on members of some of the most incredible bands of that era. He was a dude that was, he could juggle hammers. He was
right.
I mean, please just, you knew him well. Tell me about these epic conversations, because this is really where the rubber meets the road for Jake Feinberg.
Wow. He was an artist, a communication artist. This guy would pull out words, like a painter would pull out, certain mixtures of colors, and put them on this palette that was that looked messy and smeared, and yet he would put it out, and then different things would start coming into focus, and start being in sharp relief, but he would do it in such a way that he was just this very passionate guy too. I mean, he was driven. Okay, it was like he had certain, you might say, demons, even, that were in his impulses,
Yeah, he was an unsettled. He was an unsettled spirit. Yeah, I dig.
Yeah, and so and the girls loved him. Oh, he would just shower all these loving kisses on him and all this praise and words, and so they just loved this guy. They just felt, of course, he had a great physique, and tons of energy, of course, and all of this, and so the girls just, oh my gosh. So this is, we would go into a place. We would go into some, we knew people across the country. We'd stop by. We stopped by Larry McMurtry's house, and we had to be careful. I mean, we had to watch him like a hawk. And the next thing we'd know, he'd be in the bedroom with Larry's wife, if we didn't keep his, because he had just
He'd be
Just-
balling. He'd
and
be
wait-
balling her in the bedroom.
Right? Okay, probably. You know.
Oh
I'm not
my
sure.
God!
I mean, but this happened with everybody.
Legendary.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I mean, I can just see, this whole, behind us was a scattering of broken homes. broken. I
Yeah,
mean,
he was a home wrecker.
I mean, in a way, he was. But it wasn't a malicious thing. It wasn't doing. I mean, they would just like fall in love with the guy. But so this was part of who he was. I mean, and he would do the same thing. He could draw you into this conversation that would stir you up and poke at you to stimulate you to respond in a way that would reach way down. You know what I mean?
Can you give an example?
So-
Can you give an example of like with you? I mean, where he would prod you, and then all of a sudden he opened you up.
Oh, brother.
It just works so much better, like in the.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys,
In a-
and I love the fact that you guys were super close because the guy was a wordsmith.
Yeah.
Babs, talked.
The words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I mean, if you don't have it, if it doesn't come to your head right away, it's okay.
Well, the only thing I can think of is like, so we shared a condom, right?
Right.
I mean, it wasn't used. I mean, it was in a package. But he would say, "Okay, Dale, well, we got to New Orleans," and he said, "Here, I think you better take this." Sure. Every once in a while, he'd ask for it back. Say, Cheyenne. He carried it from Cheyenne, and so he was in Cheyenne, and because he's Colorado, he's kind of he was a real Western kind of guy. He wasn't Eastern, okay?
Right.
So anyway, it was a kind of thing, and then he cut loose on this big lecture to me about being careful with girls, and this whole thing with girls and how you got to treat them, and and how they're soft, and told me about how you talk to them, and I can't remember all of it, but it was very intimate, very close, it was very personal with me, like something almost like what my dad would say if my dad was on meth, right? So, but my dad was not, he was, but even though, but Neal was just that. I mean, he was that close to everybody in a way. He would get them. He would draw them in, and he could draw them in with the conversation. With the words. And
I just want to be. I'm a little bit confused because I've never had a lot of success. I mean, I have 2 daughters, but I never had a lot of success with condoms. But you're telling me that it was just something that you passed back and forth. It was never used. I can't quite understand this.
No, it wasn't used. I mean, it was just safety precautions. Listen, if you get into a place where you need this, use it, right? So it's kind of like it's still in the package.
It never got used. It never got used.
No, I don't think it ever got used. As a matter of fact, he didn't. I don't think he ever used one, but maybe, it was just kind of, he was saying, yeah, you got,
Well, I mean, because
communicable disease.
I mean, it was also speaking to this time of I don't want to say free love per se, but it's like, I mean, I know when I talked to Melanie Cassady Rado, his daughter, and she. Well, let's see. I don't want to confuse this so much, but he, basically at some point, I'm gonna have to get the quote up here, but at some point, I mean, they were. At some point, Neal's wife wound up involved with Ken, I think. I don't even know what happened, but I mean, it was just a very open time,
Okay.
I mean, it was just a very...
I know, yeah. Yeah, it was. It was, part of the open marriage kind of time, and it was that great experiment, which I think failed miserably, but, it's, I guess, under discussion, but yeah, it just doesn't work. That's all I got to say.
But I mean, when did
you? I say about that, but
I mean,
he did. I mean, he was able to like seduce women, and there were. I mean, his wife though, he loved his wife. They had a really a strange kind of thing going on. But his kids, I liked his kids. They're neat from what I knew of him.
No, I'm gonna get the quote up here because it was he used to say I don't have it on this phone right now, but the can you talk about also your experiences with seeing jazz musicians, specifically the beboppers, because or just because I mean Walker talked about seeing Dizzy Gillespie and Rahsaan Roland Kirk in San Francisco in the early '60s, and it was not bebop. It was psychedelic.
Mm-hmm.
He called it psychedelic jazz. Okay, he said it was rock music, and I've interviewed a ton of jazzers along the way, and I wanted to know about your experiences taking a seminal moment of taking in. I mean, I know you classically trained, but you clearly were outside the box, and you obviously grew up at a time when there was live music in almost every urban center in the country. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about a seminal jazz moment that Dale Kesey had.
I can't think of one live experience. It seemed there was one. I can't remember if it was George Shearing or not. Did we see George? I can't remember. But Roland Kirk, Ornette Coleman. I think we did get to see Ornette Coleman. Lenny Bruce in a way was kind of like a vocal jazz guy.
Yeah. Go on that.
In a way, I mean, he come on stage dragging the microphone behind him, like on the chorus, and he's bumping along, and he picks it up, and he just, in a way, it's just a stream of consciousness, kind of talking about different things, a little bit of political here and social, personal, and then going back to the audience and picking up here and there. I can't remember a whole lot about it other than that he was cool. It was part of the crossover from the Bohemian beatnik thing.
That's right.
Coming into the more of the psychedelic thing.
Can I ask you a question? This is really important. This is important because you took the road trip with Kerouac. And we talked about this great experiment being, you can say what you want, a failure. It's still being vetted, whatever. But do you think the Bohemian lifestyle did that inspire you? Do you believe that those cats were inspiring, the beatniks?
Well, but they were in the sense that I think that from a jazz point of view, a lot of the great jazz was, kind of born there with Thelonious Monk and the Modern Jazz Quartet, Evans, all of those guys. And at the time, it was just, it was some really, really good stuff,
I mean,
really
can you go a little bit deeper? Because I was, when you say that, because I always thought that Kerouac and to a lesser extent, I'm sorry, Ginsberg, those cats were they writing about this bebop, this language of music? I mean, how did it help, like Bill Evans? Bill Evans was not a beatnik, was he?
Well, but they weren't bebop. I mean, it was always kind of smooth jazz.
Right.
I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, where it developed. I mean, it kind of developed out of Ella Fitzgerald, right? Went up that way. And Dizzy Gillespie. I mean, it kind of just evolved. And so, yeah, it was. Let me see. I want to say Bohemian beatnik because of the coffee houses. They had coffee houses
Exactly.
and sit around and smoke joints. I mean, it was marijuana was very scarce, right? Very scarce. So you had just little bitty joints, right? So but you sat around these dark, smoky places, and somebody would read a poem, and and then somebody, they had a little jazz band, and it was just all kind of really laid back, smooth. Yeah.
Did you have a chance? Yeah, no, because because that stuff was happening. Like I remember talking to Marty Ballin from the Jefferson Airplane. He said he went downstairs into his parents' house, and Furthur was riffing poetry with a jazz band, with a jazz band behind.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that is like that's so cool. I mean, were you? Was that the kind of stuff that you guys were seeing pretty consistently?
In the early days, yeah, there in San Francisco, yeah, that was the early days, the very early days. I was really young too, I mean, I was still a frat guy, so it's like it was a whole other world, but it was pretty laid back. That's all I remember. Yeah.
I mean, I was going to say if you could. If you still think if there was anything you took away from that still to this day you hold near and dear to your heart from those, because to me it's like there were even records that were pressed about Furthur going out, and then there'd be a nameless quartet in the background, but here you are, it was this idea of what is the bohemian lifestyle? It's another avenue. It's not materialism. It's not berserker capitalism. And then you have this only true American art form of jazz, a black art form that has been, that we know the original sin of this country is slavery. So it's like we're going back to, a repressed people with their music, and then these bohemians channeling this completely different way of leading life. And I find it to be incredibly relevant in today's paradigm. I really do.
I don't know how it all fits in, but there's like Dizzy Gillespie, Sketches of Spain. I think it
was Miles. Yeah.
This guy, what was Miles Davis doing? There was a guy that had what he called word jazz, and I can't think of his name right off. But he did word jazz.
Word jazz.
And
Ken Nordine.
Ken Nordine.
Is that his name?
Yes.
Yeah. See, I'm pretty sharp on it. Yeah, I got him. I nailed him.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen those records. Yeah. So he was.
You've seen those.
I've actually. Yeah. So he was scatting. Was he singing to the jazz? Is that it?
Yeah. No, he wasn't singing. He was just what you'd call scatting. There was another guy that was before him. He's called Lord Buckley.
Well, I just interviewed his daughter, Lori.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Did you see Buckley?
I didn't know. I just heard him. I didn't see him, but I heard him. And that was enough. I mean, oh my God, this is awesome. This is whoa, was great stuff. Was just dynamite in my mind. And Ken Nordine, listened a lot to him. So it was all very exploratory, really out there stuff was starting to happen.
Do you just before we wrap up part one here, we've been cooking for over an hour here, which has been great. I'm curious about if you felt like if you could talk about one of the most memorable experiences you had with Ken towards the end. I mean, I was transcribing this thing with Sunshine from my conversation, and she was talking not just about, obviously her dad was Jerry Garcia and her mom was Mountain Girl. I'm sorry, and her mom was her dad was Ken Kesey, and her mom was Mountain Girl. But she just said that with Jerry and with Ken, with Ken especially, she felt like the family did not have. They did the best they could as far as having an intimate goodbye, But do you feel like you had, what was the last memorable experience you had with Ken Kesey before he left us?
I'm going to go back to how we started this whole conversation about the failures.
Sure.
I think everybody has failures in life, and it's how we deal with those. My wife and I have run a recovery house here, a recovery home, for the last 20 years. A lot of that time, I was working in the woods. I love being in the woods. I love the woods, and so I don't like city living, and so I just like being up in the woods. But the whole idea about the failures are where we learn. That's where we get our wisdom from. And Mountain Girl touched briefly, Carolyn, on or Sunshine did,
Yeah.
I guess it was,
Mm-hmm.
on the darker things that kind of were a shadow behind so much of the things that we saw. And I don't want to speak directly to that right now, but all I can say is that that out of that, there is I want to call it almost a janitorial kind of function, a custodial, a servant kind of a role that we must continue to play. That after every great party and so forth, there's always cleanup.
Sure.
And so it's not that it's a hard job or that it's a bad job or that it's something that's a must-do kind of thing, because I've found a great joy in just working with people whose lives have been, because of so much of it is just because they didn't have good dads, a tremendous amount of them. I'd say 90%, of the guys I work with just didn't have good dads or good family.
Mm-hmm.
And so in all of that, I'm just saying that, in the last times with Ken, I think were times when he knew better. I mean, I was mad at him, and Chuck, his brother, we were mad at him for messing up. You're messing up. Can't stop. So but I don't want to make too much out of that, because and like I said, when working with people, you see that maybe there's some things that are just, not in our ability to.
Are you referring to his?
Overcome.
Are you referring specifically to his? He was a very involved parent, though, right? I mean, he had.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yes.
you're just talking about personal
He's a good
decisions.
guy.
Yeah.
Personal, yeah, but just his inability to pull away from. It's kind of what I call maybe an investment theology. It's you become so invested in something, a belief system primarily, or something that you can't pull out of it.
Right.
It's just too much. So and if we don't change, if we don't keep that search for truth, if we don't keep pressing on, but kind of get stalled out here somewhere along the line, it works to our detriment.
Right. And do you remember I just wanted you to, what was your relationship like with
Hey?
no, Jed
No.
Kesey?
Jed?
Yes. I mean, what was that? What was it? Because I know that really, I mean, you're a man of God now, but I transcribed something last night from Zane talking about this bus trip that you were off the bus at that point, but basically, this cat was talking to Ken, and he said, I thought you were more intelligent than to believe in organized religion. And Ken said his eyes welled up with tears, and he goes, it's the only way I'm ever going to see Jed again. And you know, do you remember what that was like when you got the news that he had passed away? And that was because I know George built like a huge casket for him, and I just wanted to know what you know. Jed has really been in my thoughts on my journey, and I just wasn't sure where you were at that time.
Yeah, well, that's yeah. I think it's good that you bring that up because I think that had a lot to do with Ken later on. I mean, it was I can't imagine it, you know, and I couldn't. I felt like there wasn't anything I could do for him, you know, and I felt so helpless because it was so almost unheard of. That was the first time that, you know, things like that had happened to any of us, you know. And so it was so devastating. I'm probably that's a big reason why Ken couldn't pull out of maybe kind of like a tailspin that he was in. But I think in my last conversations with him that he had turned to the kind of the traditional thinking of God, you know. I mean, that was kind of in our family, you know, kind of we're a traditional Baptist kind of way of thinking. So I think, and Faye, to this day, and at that time even, she'd been a Bible teacher and taught women's Bible classes and so forth at the local Baptist church up there in Pleasant Hill. So I think that during the last there, I think that's what he meant by that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he had turned to.
Do you have?
I've been on him pretty good about that stuff too. Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, we would get in great arguments, theological discussions, and you know, Martin Buber and Ian Dow and you know,
sure.
some of those you know areas and what it meant and what it was about. And yeah.
Do you still do you still speak to Faye at all?
Oh yeah. Just seen her just not too long ago. Yeah, she's doing really good. She looks really good. I got to tell you, she looks really good.
Because does she spend part of her year in Tucson? I'm in Tucson, Arizona.
Oh yeah, I think or Santa Fe, maybe.
Zane said that it's Tucson, but I just
okay.
Yeah, I mean, either way, I just would love.
Mercury must have a place there, but you could find out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but Dale, I just setting it all aside, you know, can you just put a stamp? Can you talk a little bit about what is if I had never called and never become, you know, part of your consciousness? I mean, what is something that you can look back on and say, for me, that period of time, that 60s period of time, fill in the blank, not about retrospection, it was seminal because fill in the blank.
Seminal because it was the frontier was something that was an adventure, exciting. We were blazing trails, and I think it was just a time of exploration.
Well, you know, it was really an honor to connect with you, man. And maybe if possible, you could connect me with Faye. I would love to talk to her too about her experience.
Okay. I think maybe Sunshine would be, or I'll try to see if I can. I mean,
yeah, I got to ask Sunshine for another favor. That would be her mom. So I just yeah, but
yeah.
you know, I'll tell you, anybody. This is the truth, Dale. Is that Chuck Kesey was his brother? I don't know if he's around. I just want to talk.
Oh yeah.
You
hold it, Chuck. He'd talk to you, probably.
I mean, if you can connect me with Chuck, or you can give me an email or phone number, I'd really appreciate that.
I will.
All right, cool.
Yeah, sure.
We'll do that later. But Dale, we went for an hour and 12 minutes. I think we got some good stuff on the table here.
Hey, I love talking to you, Jake.
Hey, man, I love you too. Listen,
cool.
God bless you. And listen, friend me on Facebook because I'm gonna be blowing out these stories all over the world. And I'm telling you, the stuff that I put up the stuff last night from Sunshine, and it's really resonating, man. It really resonates. I feel honored and humbled. Aside from all my excerpts from all the cats, this was just another regional pocket of frontier expansion. You were part of it, and that's part of history, man. That's all I'm trying to do, you know?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate talking to you. I do. It's you really have me digging in there, and, you know.
Well, we'll do it again soon. I mean, because I guarantee you, like later today, a good story or two is going to pop into your head that you're going to say, I wish I told that. So we'll do it again, and we'll keep moving along, man. It's great to hang, man. Great hang.
Okay.
All right, bud.
Awesome.
Talk to you soon.
See you later.
Later on.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. And that's a wrap with a legendary character, part of one of the original merry pranksters, Zane Kesey, cousin of Ken Kesey, and he just waxed poetic about the trip to New York on the prankster bus and really the frontier expansion and determination of the pranksters. Just had a ball with him, and I think we're going to be off tomorrow, but we'll be back Saturday, regularly scheduled program, big show in store. Let's rejoin the Jim Parisi Show in progress.
Is they go look at it. If you're a problem solver, if you're a businessman, that's what you do. I mean, you have to be someone who's willing to look at things and with the experience to know if you look at things, how to